I do have some information for you.
What's that?
I've finally seen Demolition Man.
Oh!
Now, to be fair,
Yay!
I was watching it while I was making dinner, and there is about maybe 15 minutes left.
Oh
So I've not
no!
100% finished it yet.
Oh no! Okay. Okay. Okay.
But
What was the last thing you saw in it?
the last
So I
thing
don't
that
spoil
I saw
anything. I wanna make
was
sure.
the doctor dude getting blasted.
Okay. All right. All right. Gotcha. Gotcha. So what do you think so far? Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it's
You
weird
need to
because
lie. You
it's-
need to lie if you like
no,
it.
no, no,
If
no,
you
no,
don't
no, no.
like it.
I do like it. Yeah,
This is the time to lie, Neil. This is the time.
straight up and down. I do enjoy the
Okay.
movie.
All right. Good. Good. Good.
But it does that thing because like a lot of action movies, especially like some of like 80s 90s action movies did that thing to where it's like it's an action movie but like they throw funny goofs in there, but there's like way more funny goofs than normal in this one. Like, I was very pleased with the amount of times that just like in the background somebody cusses and a ticket gets printed
Yes.
out.
Yes. Yeah. You just hear it like. You have been 515 credit for the verbal menage. Yeah. Yeah. It's very good. I love that movie. I love that movie. I think Wesley Snipes is amazing in it as a bad guy. He's phenomenal. Like,
Because you know the only thing that I really like off the top of my head anytime I think Wesley Snipes is immediately Blade. So
Right.
that's what I know of as Wesley Snipes.
Right.
Now, I mean, to be fair, I am sure he's been in a lot of other stuff, but
Yes.
I'm directly comparing it to Blade. So
he's
I'm
also
like
a pretty big asshole in real life, from what I understand.
I've heard that
Like
as well,
a
yes.
lunatic
Well,
asshole.
Tax evasion will do that too, yeah.
It's not even just tax evasion. Like he does like crazy like requests of people, like one of those. Like he's very strange. Like on Blade 3, he only worked like 2 hours a day, and he just walk off
yeah.
set if they didn't have it. Like crazy shit like that.
Well, I mean that movie was garbage anyway.
It was, but still, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
The best Wesley Snipes movies are this one. This is the best in my opinion. And then there is Drop Zone, which is a lot of fun. It's got Gary Busey in it. It's an 80s action movie. It's about like he's a cop and there's these people who are robbing people, but they're all professional parachuters. It's like kind of like Point Break, but with parachutes instead of surfing. And it's good. Gary Busey's a bad guy. He's fucking crazy and amazing. It's a good one. The other one, but Passenger 57 is a great movie to watch too because it's terrible. And it's terrible in all the best ways. There is straight up a line from Wesley Snipes in Passenger 57 where he's talking to the main bad guy. And he's like, you ever play roulette at the casinos? And the guy's like, yes. Why? And he goes, always bet on black, and hangs up the phone. Like that, those kind of lines that are just like,
Yeah.
give them to me. Num 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 num.
So the next after I watch this, the next one that I'm gonna try to watch is Face Off because I've not seen Face Off.
Dude.
And the reason why I'm wanting to see that movie is we just rented that weight of something talent.
Oh my god! That movie's awesome! The unbearable
that was-
weight of massive talent. Yeah.
That yes.
That movie's awesome. Awesome movie.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
Nicolas Cage is great. Even his bad movies are great. I don't care what anybody says. I'm a Nicolas Cage fan. Face Off is great. Here's what I will say to you, because I know you. Suspend disbelief and logic, because you need to for this one. Like, heavily suspend it, because just crazy shit happens in that movie from start to finish. Not even just talking about the action scenes, which are bonkers over the top, but I mean, like so many things that are just like, well, that's not medically possible. That's not physically feasible. You can't do that. Like, what's happening here? Like, but if you suspend that disbelief, that movie's great. Just great. Overacting through the whole thing, both Travolta and Nicolas Cage. It was like they both went into a room and were like, who's going to be louder and do the crazier voice? Like, like they were having a contest with each other.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. You, dear listener, have chosen whatever reason to listen to another horrible gaming podcast. I am not alone this week. With me is
Neil, aka Tiny Wizard.
the man is back. The man with a plan is back.
I am back, yes.
Now, don't go into your personal business, but everything worked out okay, I assume.
Yeah, it was, like I said, I had talked to you about
Yeah,
it.
you
and
had.
I promise, guys, it was not as serious in the end as what it was. It is an Easter that will be remembered forever.
At the end of the day, it's family. You had to be somewhere. It's still a family emergency. I get it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But he's back, so we're going to do a full show today, and we're going to do the topic that was promised last week, which is we're gonna break down what our favorite consoles, what we think are best consoles, just the consoles through the ages, right here. We're going to have a little bit more of a fun podcast. I'm super excited about this one. Super stoked. So yeah, but before we get into that, we got to thank the people that helped make this possible. Above us, above our ugly mugs, you're seeing a custom graphic that is designed by Mr. Mark Bell. Thank him for that. And then, of course, the theme song for this show and most of the shows here at Old Man Gaming is provided by the man who makes the music, my brother, Nick Van Sliders. We thank him for that. We'll be right back with Fan Interaction.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to Fan Interaction. That is where we, the co-hosts, talk to you guys, the fans. We read out all your reactions. We riff on them. We talk on them. All that stuff. Last week was my lonely show. So, a lot of these are going to refer to that. But I'm sure Neil could chime in on some things. What'd you think about that? My thoughts last week. What'd you think about all that?
I think you did a pretty good job going solo there. In fact, your conversation about Ark and the decisions that they have made, I feel like you almost could have gotten away with that being a terrible talk.
Yeah, I think I could have too. I think that, what Ark is doing, what those guys are doing is...
it's super shitty. And
super
like
shitty.
you said, too, I mean... live service games, while I'm not a fan of them, they're taking a beating a lot lately.
It's because of this shit, though. That's
Exactly.
what bothers me so much. It's not because of games as service as a model being bad. It's because just everybody is trying to be predatory about it. Mm-hmm. It's just so frustrating. And I guess Ark walked a little bit of it back, but nowhere near what they should have.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's just so frustrating. But let's get into the comments. William Ho and hi! Exclamation point. Starting with my off topic, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance was released on mobile. It's crazy. I love that game on GameCube back in the days. The Ark story is crazy, and it might hurt the industry as a whole. Can't wait for the best console ever discussion. Well, your wait is very short at this point. Thanks for the show. Hashtag SNES. I'm assuming that's his vote for best console ever.
Solid choice.
I think it's overrated. I think we'll get into it, but I think it's overrated. Yeah. But we'll save that for the talking point. I think that, yes, that's the biggest problem with the Ark story for me, is that it hurts the industry. Like all of these things that we're talking about that get me so upset, it's not just because, oh, this is a company that did a bad thing, because companies are doing bad things all the time. It's that the company's doing this, like I've watched in my lifetime video games go from being a fun toy to being an art form to being a high-level, high-grossing art form, to being a predatory, evil industry. That's my biggest problem, is every one of these is a step backwards. Like, I'm now 41, and I'm watching them literally step backwards, down and down and down. And that's my biggest problem with all these things, is it's hurting the industry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I can see you want to add to it.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those things that, I mean, we've seen it apparent now for a long time. Everything that is done, everything that's happening in the industry, not one single bit of it is due to the players, other than the fact that they are still like effectively condoning what's going on by still buying the things and not speaking out. I mean, I mean, at the same time, I will be fair. I've said before, like, I am definitely part of the problem when it comes to some of this stuff, like Tears of the Kingdom. Like,
here's the thing. Do I judge you for that Tears of the Kingdom thing? Sure. Should you judge me for buying 2K23? Definitely. Like, everybody has a thing where they're going to be part of the problem a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's a game that's like, I'm going to circumvent the things that I say because I want to play this game. So I don't necessarily think, and I hope I didn't convey this accidentally, but I don't think it's necessarily right to blame the consumers. It's just, I want consumers as a whole to more actively think about their purchasing choices than just knee-jerk pre-order reactions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe wait for the review. Maybe think about it a little bit before you just run out to buy the thing and give them money. Because when you give them money for that thing, that was your only way to tell them you don't like what they're doing. That's it.
Right.
There's no way to return it. There's no way for them to, for you to get your money back other than social media, and they don't care about that, guys. They do not give a shit how many Reddit posts about how crappy their games are. They don't care. The only thing those people are looking at are the amount of money they've made versus the amount of money they've spent to make the thing. That's it.
Yeah, especially, kind of to that point, when you take a look at that sort of thing, for every single one post on Reddit or social media that, this is ridiculous, that they're doing X, Y, and Z, there's 15, 20 plus people who are saying, I don't give a shit, bye.
Right. Exactly. So I don't necessarily think it's right to say, oh, it's the consumer's fault, or slap them on the wrists for it. But at the same time, I really want the consumers to stop and think about their choices. Yeah. Like I made a choice to buy 2K23. Number one, because I really wanted to do a show, which is seriously in jeopardy because of how janky that game is, which is a whole nother story.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
They're back on it again?
Oh, I'm very upset right now.
No.
But I made... They had shitty microtransactions. They straight up admitted before they released it that they cut characters that were finished from the game to put them in DLC to make you pay for them. Like that was evil shit. But I made a decision that I was like, I want to do this show. I want to play this game more than the evil crap they did. I'm going to purchase this game. I am part of the problem on 2K23. The minute that happens. But at the same time, am I really to blame for them being evil? No, I don't. It's the same with you, and it's the same with you and Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know what your reasonings are for definitely going to play it, and I don't want to necessarily get into it. But if you make a choice to be like, hey, this shit they did is evil. It's not evil enough for me not to buy it. That's fine. I just want people to think about it before they hit that pre-order button, before they rush out to get it. I want you to weigh all of it. Don't just be like, Zelda, yeah, or Ark, yeah, think about everything that's happened and weigh those options before you just make that purchase, you know? And that sounded like I was talking to you. I'm just talking to everybody. Like, weigh it, you know? So moving on. Jason says, I played Ark until I had a shack. Built a pipe system to water plants. Inside, then I probably wandered to another game and never wandered back. I wanted to like Ark because dinosaurs. But outside of dinosaurs, it's kind of bland and tedious compared to other games like it that I've played. So if they're killing it to make way for Ark Redux, screw them. I mean, that's a good outlook. I think that, like... Yeah, I think Ark has a place because I still kind of feel like... I don't feel like it's superior to a lot of other survival games out there, at least that I've played, but I still feel like it was one of the more mainstream ones that kind of got people on this survival game kick. But yeah, the boycott, #boycott Ark. Still keeping it going.
Yeah.
Jason, Dead by Daylight, except it's Disney. Peg Leg Pete versus Mickey Mouse, Scrooge McDuck, Donald Duck, and Clarabelle Cow. I'm going to say this. I don't exactly know what he's talking about there. I said a lot of things, so I'm sure he's referring to something. But I would play this game.
Yeah, no.
I'd play this game in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Take my money for that.
I am a fan of anything that is like putting a spin on the Disney genre. There's a book series out there that I've been kind of curious about, and I am not a reader at all in the slightest. I have read 2 books in the past like 10 to 15 years, and it was Ready Player One and Ready Player Two. That was it. But it's a what if sort of situation with Disney. So it's like, oh, what if Scar actually won?
Oh,
what if,
that's cool.
That's cool. And it's like a continuation, alternate reality sort of thing. Like, I love that sort of shit.
Yeah.
Definitely been curious about those books. Not curious enough to buy them, of course, because, I suck. But
hey, man, I used to read a ton when I was a kid. I have a ton of detective novels that I read when I was younger. I don't read anymore, and I've tried so many times to like etch out some time to read, but like it just doesn't hold me anymore. I have been literally halfway through the complete works of Sherlock Holmes for like fucking 10 years. It's ridiculous. All right, so moving on, we then have Jason one more time. That sketch is done on the Summoner disc. It was great. He then says this is it and tags the link. He's specifically referring to Asylum made a quote about I don't know if you've ever seen this, the old nerd sketch that they did at the end of the Summoners disc, where it was like, I attacked the darkness. Where are the girls here? Have you ever seen that one?
I feel like I vaguely aware of it.
Like if you watched it, you'd be like, oh, I know this. Like it's like nerd lore. It's great. Are there any girls at the tavern? Because I want to do them. Like it's just hilarious. It's one of it is classic stuff. And Asylum quoted it, and I quoted it back. So so that's it for fan traction. You got anything you want to add, man?
No.
All right, let's do it. Let's do this awesome topic. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, and we will decide what is the greatest console ever made. And by we, I mean we're going to argue about it. We're probably going to disagree, and then the show will end. we'll be
in abject silence, just staring at the screens.
We'll be right back.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the talking point, and that is what is the greatest console ever made? I want to lay a couple ever. Nice, I like that. Yeah, the Discord actually silenced you at the beginning, so it was real weird because you got a little too loud.
Great.
So it was like It was
I
like,
wish I could find the balance of that because I'm like always playing with my gain on my microphone.
so I want to lay out a couple of ground rules for this one.
Okay.
Can we do that? Can we do that?
Yeah,
I want to.
It's funny too because we did not discuss rules for this. Just like, yeah, let's do a thing.
Yeah, we did. I want to exclude PC from the console discussion.
Yes.
Because I think that whether you are a console person or a PC person, I think PC's versatility would give it an unfair advantage in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and plus everything comes to PC anyways, like in an official or unofficial capacity. I think it just doesn't count.
I think we should move away from that. I think the other thing that we should avoid is like early concept consoles, like the stuff before the Atari and stuff like that. I don't think that we should.
Oh yeah. I honestly, I was going to be relegating it from NES to now.
Okay, all right, that's perfect. That's perfect because that's what I'm looking at too. I think our Atari deserves its place in the annals of history, but also since it almost literally killed video gaming in the United States, I kind of think it eliminates itself immediately. So let's talk about it. So how should we do this? Should we break down the consoles that we've played and then decide which ones we like the most? How do you want to play this one?
I don't know. I was actually thinking if we could like somehow associate, like give it a personal number score.
I think we would have had to plan a little bit more than we did.
Probably had to plan a little bit more
for that sort of
to
thing.
Get a set rule amount. Yeah, we can just go over like where we feel like I think we should do where we feel like we started.
Okay.
And where we really hit our stride.
Okay. All right. I mean, I know what mine is, and I think it might be the same as yours, which is interesting. So, but I'm interested to see it. So, first console you ever played, and then I'll do my first console ever.
Okay.
We'll just go back and forth.
Yeah. So then the first one, the very first one I ever played was actually the Super Nintendo.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Super Nintendo was the very first one. Now, after the Super Nintendo, it was like a door that kind of opened for me to this world of, oh, what's this? Oh, there's more than just this one thing.
Right.
So like the 8-bit Nintendo came along, and then I got a Sega Genesis.
So you bought a Nintendo, an NES, after an SNES.
So I didn't even have the NES. The first one that I actively owned was the Super Nintendo.
Right. But you bought backwards. That's crazy.
Yeah, I kind of went backwards. The very first one that I owned was the Super Nintendo.
That's kind of weird. That's crazy.
I got a Sega Genesis shortly thereafter. I had played on an 8-bit Nintendo, but I really didn't have one for a while. It was like a cousin's one that was like, it was one of those, they got it as a gift because it was the hot new thing, but like they weren't gamers. So it's just kind of like one of those things that they brought over one day, left it, and then like it's just like, hey, guess what? It's mine now. Like,
oh, that's amazing
situation.
9/10 of the law for a fucking console. That's pretty good. Yeah. You can't get better than that. So first console for me was the NES. It was the first one, and it was back in the day when we were much younger. We lived in a very rural area of Michigan, Manton, Michigan, actually. You can look it up. I went back recently. It's a nice little town, but it's extremely small and in the middle of nowhere. So you didn't get stuff back then. There was one video rental place. And you could actually rent Nintendo Entertainment. So you could rent consoles back then, but you could rent a Nintendo Entertainment System. So it would be like a thing. We would rent a Nintendo and some games on a Friday, and we'd have to take it back on a Sunday. So it was kind of like a weekend thing. And back then, my whole family actually kind of got into it, even my dad and my mom. They would get into the more high-concept RPG stuff like Dragon Quest, and like Zelda and whatnot. And me and Nick, my brother, would play Mario, Wrecking Crew, stuff like that. But yeah, first console ever was the NES, without a doubt.
Yeah, I want to say like between all of those, I think I stuck more to the Super Nintendo
Okay.
because that was like we've talked about this before. The very first game we've ever beaten. For me, it was Super Mario World.
Yeah.
That was like a huge thing for me. The Super Nintendo is where I had a lot of my games uh, right out of the gate. Because like even with the Sega, I had Sonic, Sonic 2, and I had a friend of mine had Streets of Rage. But like outside of that, like
OG Brawler.
the OG, yeah.
One of the OGs. I mean, you can't count out River City and Double Dragon. They actually came first, but yeah. I after Nintendo Entertainment System, it was Sega Genesis. We didn't get Super Nintendo until we were much older. The Genesis was our pick after that with Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff. And I'm gonna say right now, we were huge Genesis kids. We played a lot of Streets of Rage, all the Streets of Rage. Sunset Riders on Genesis was a big one for us. We played the Sonics, every Sonic. I was obsessed with Sonic when I was a kid. Very nostalgic. The first game I ever beat was actually on the Nintendo. It was DuckTales. I've told that story before. Usually my brother, who is better at everything than me, when he puts his mind to it, he usually beat him. But the one game that I got ahead of on him was DuckTales. So I actually was the one that conquered DuckTales. But but yeah. And then the Super Nintendo didn't come along until much later for us. Yeah, I liked Super Nintendo. But the things I played on Super Nintendo, the things I really got into was there was NHLPA Hockey 95, which was a huge fucking game for me because you could create yourself, put yourself on a hockey team. You know, there was a draft that would come out that you could run through an entire franchise mode. It was very cool, especially since we were hockey kids when we were younger. And yeah, so those are the OG 3 systems, right? So
Yeah.
So is the Super Nintendo your GOAT system then? Are we moving on or?
You know what? No. I mean, of the originals, there, I would say, yeah, it would be the Super Nintendo.
Right.
But like, I feel like, I mean, I think at this point, I think we can kind of expand it broader.
Yeah.
I
I would say it's hard to pick a GOAT out of those 3 because for me, they were all very even in their own ways. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like with Sega, like I played a lot of Sonic and like Streets of Rage, but outside of that, I really didn't play a whole heck of a lot. Well, Golden Axe too, I guess. But,
Yeah, I was about to say Golden Axe.
Yeah, Golden Axe. But outside of that, like that was really all I played on the Sega. But then we kind of moved into the disc-based era.
You're too early. You're too early. You're missing Nintendo 64.
Well,
is that disc-based era? You think that's
no.
disc-based era?
Technically,
you're missing 32X. You're missing Nintendo 64. You're missing.
The Nintendo 64 technically, Nintendo historically they were working on a disc-based thing for the 64, but they just couldn't get it to work. They were still trying to get the cartridge to work when everybody else has moved on to discs. I would kind of consider it within that era, as it like kind of came out the same time as like the PS1, you know, stuff like Sega Saturn. I did not have a Sega Saturn.
I had a Sega Saturn.
I didn't have a Sega Saturn.
I had a Sega Saturn.
Never touched a Sega Saturn.
One of my all-time favorite games on Sega Saturn, of all time, was on a Sega Saturn. It's called Dragon Force. It was amazing. Anybody out there, look up videos of it because it's fun to watch. It's one of my biggest regrets too because that game is so rare that you can get like $100 to $200 for it, even more if you have the case and instruction booklet. And guess what I have?
Yeah.
The case and instruction booklet, but not the game. Because the game was probably in the Sega Saturn, and the Sega Saturn is lost to the annals of time. We don't know where it is, me or my brother. We don't know what happened to it. So, real bummer there. But Sega Saturn also had Virtual Cop, which was a fucking ton of fun. But I did enjoy the Sega Saturn as much as it did fail. I thought there was a lot of games on it that were a lot of fun.
Yeah, within that era, the 64 really was the only one that I had played.
I liked the 64. 64 had some good games too.
The 64 did have some good games. Definitely had some games.
I still have my
that
64
were...
right here.
Oh yeah, I got mine upstairs too. But the thing is, like with the 64, I never really like outside of like the big bangers like Smash, Mario Kart, Mario
GoldenEye.
64, Paper. I didn't even play GoldenEye.
You didn't play GoldenEye. Get off the show. You're fucking fired.
I know,
Are you kidding me?
No.
It's a seminal work, man.
No, I still to this day have never played GoldenEye.
You know what we should do? Because it's on fucking Game Pass. I wish it would come to PC, but if it does, we should play GoldenEye for one of our streams.
I could dig it.
You, me, and Caleb, the last of 3 should play GoldenEye. That would be a lot of fun.
I can dig it, yeah.
GoldenEye was great. Star Fox 64 was one of my all-time favorite games. Still holds me. I played that game to death. Every level, every different route. I even got the special ending where you get like to meet Fox's dad. Like his ghost comes back and helps you through through a thing. Like I love Star Fox 64. Would not be my favorite system ever though.
Oh yeah, no, I think we're still getting there. I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that era of gaming. When I really look back on it, like, I wouldn't say it's like a blank space for me, but there was not much in the way of growth beyond what I had known.
Okay.
Because it really was. It was Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Still, it wasn't, and I didn't even have a PS1. I never owned a PS1.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't until we moved beyond the PS1 that I got a PlayStation console.
Well, let me fill in some space, because I had a 64, I had a Saturn, I had a PS1, and the Sega Dreamcast is the other one we got to talk about. Sega's last ill-fated system, which is a very underrated system in my opinion. This was actually the first console that I purchased with my own money that I worked at a job to get. It was the first time I had bought a console myself, and I still have it, and I made it work over there on that TV. I'm very proud of that. I've played Sonic Adventure with my child, which is a great achievement for me. The Dreamcast will hold just a huge spot for me. For my entire life, just because of that and all the memories I had with it. Not my GOAT system though, but still.
No, yeah. The Dreamcast for me.
Did you play it? Did you own it?
Yeah, I had one.
Really?
I played it.
Okay.
I only had one single solitary game.
Sonic.
And it was just Sonic Adventure. And
should have gotten Sonic 2. Sonic 2 was a good one.
So I didn't even know. At that point in time, I did not know that Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 were Dreamcast games.
Oh.
Because I got a Dreamcast whenever Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and Sonic Adventure DX came to the GameCube.
Oh.
I went backwards with that one.
Okay.
And I have a very fond memory of long ago when I lived over in Pennsylvania. I lived about, I want to say about a mile and a half-ish from a store called Bud Street Video.
Okay.
It was a buy-sell trade place. And I just got a bunch of stuff together back when I still traded in games and stuff. Loaded it all into my book bag, rode my bike down there. I'd constantly be in that store. But the one day I remember trading all this stuff in, the guy told me how much he was going to give me for it. I was going to be able to get the console with the controller, a VMU. Remember the VMUs?
Oh, yeah. That is actually one of my biggest problems right now, is because the VMUs are so goddamn expensive, especially now. VMU, for everybody out there, is the visual memory unit. So in the middle of a Dreamcast controller, you would plug this. It was almost like a nano-sized Game Boy and had Game Boy buttons on it. There was
and you could do things on it, too.
There was a handful of games that you could actually play. It had a little LCD screen on it. Mm-hmm. You'd plug it in, so the whole time you're playing Sonic Adventure, for whatever reason, it would say that you're playing Sonic Adventure on the screen. It was fucking dumb. But because they did that, like, it was one of my biggest problems when I got it, because I got it and I'm ready to play, and then I'm like, oh god, I don't have a working VMU. They're another fucking $80 to find right now.
Oh god,
they're so expensive. They're
holy shit.
And Dreamcast games are not cheap. I just want to say that right now, because
yeah,
they're all rare. They're very expensive. But yeah, it was something else. So yeah, VMU. That's awesome, man.
I would. Oh, I'm seeing on eBay, by the way, $30.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But I had ridden down there. I was able to pick up a VMU, the console with the controller, and I wanted, of course, a game too, and I wanted Sonic Adventure. But I didn't realize it because, you know, as a young dumb kid who was no good at math, was $12 short. And I went to the counter and said, you know, I wanted all the stuff and then the game. And then the guy behind the counter was like, well, actually, kid, you're a couple bucks short. And I was like super sad, and I must have like guilted him into, he's like, you know what? I remember specifically, he said, you know what, kid, you're a good customer. And he just opened up the thing and gave me the game too. He said, here you go, enjoy. Oh my
God, that's awesome.
Yeah, like that dude, I'm sure he's like dead and gone now because he was already older anyways.
Right.
Like, it's just like a random person in your life, and it's just like you think about that sort of stuff, and it's like, wow, like that's kind of what at the end of the day, like kind of what gaming's all about is like, you know, people just coming together like for the love of, or at least it should be. Yeah, that's fair. For the love of everything. But yeah, Dreamcast for me was a weird retro step back situation.
Right.
I did play, the only other Dreamcast game I ever played was Jet Set Radio.
And that's one I still haven't played. I want to play it, but I haven't been able to find a copy of it. Like, that's one I want to get. There's also this weird kind of issue. The Dreamcast actually built into its games like these weird properties that like certain games you can't play on a TV, even if you have on our common TVs now, even if you have an adapter, which is a real bummer because like half of my old Dreamcast games that I still had did not work because of that. So like I had to download a list of games that I could buy, and the one game that I absolutely wanted to play that I never got to play on the original Dreamcast that I was going to get, I can't play this way. That's Skies of Arcadia. I really wanted to play that. I never got to. It's one of those like missed opportunities for me because you can't play it on the new TVs. It's got the VGA restriction. So,
yeah.
So Dreamcast is cool. Dreamcast is great. GameCube. I never owned a GameCube. This is the first one where I have a hole. And the reason I don't have a GameCube is, not to toot my own horn, but I predicted correctly that GameCube would not last and would not compare to a PlayStation in any way, shape, or form. And it really didn't. It got destroyed.
Yeah. And you know, that's the thing that really sucks too, is like on a technical level, it was a lesser console. It used its own weird proprietary disc. Everything along those lines. But what's absolutely bonkers is I feel like, while it's not my GOAT, I feel like the GameCube is when Nintendo was really like coming into their own. That's when they were taking chances with stuff. That's when they were pushing the boundaries on stuff. There are a lot of certified bangers on the GameCube still to this day.
Name one.
All the Mario parties, Mario Kart Double Dash, Master Quest, the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest, which I don't know if that technically counts as.
I was about to say, I don't know if.
Thousand Year Door, Resident Evil 4.
Don't know if I agree with half of these. Plus, Mario Party started on the 64, not on GameCube.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
I mean,
it
that's
did
not a
start on the
chance that they
64.
took.
It did start on the 64, but a lot of the biggest bulk of the Mario Party games were on the GameCube.
Okay, I guess. I don't know. Like these games don't really do anything for me. I thought their Smash Brothers game was subpar. I thought Melee sucked compared to the OG one. And
That's wild.
Yeah, I
'Cause
didn't like Melee at all.
Melee's regarded as the superior Smash right next to Ultimate.
That's terrible to me. I would not like that. I liked the OG Smash. I didn't like Melee at all. Melee just had this like claustrophobic feel that just didn't. I don't know. I didn't like it. But and they had some terrible Star Fox games on there. I didn't like what they did to the Star Fox.
Yeah.
They did some shitty things to the Star Fox franchise, which made me angry. They brought some Sonic stuff over from Dreamcast, but like, which was nice because Sonic Adventure 2 I was never actually able to get for the Dreamcast. So I ended up getting it to play it. I ended up getting it for GameCube and playing it on the Wii because Wii was backwards compatible with GameCube.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It just I don't know. I thought that was a subpar miss for Nintendo on.
The Prime games. The Prime games started
Okay,
there.
you got the Prime games. I'm not going to argue the Prime games against you. Metroid isn't my thing, but those are like well-regarded great games. I wouldn't knock them. I just like for the library, I don't know that I would consider them. I don't know that I'd consider
Luigi's Mansion.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like the more I keep thinking about it, is like, wow, GameCube really did have a lot of.
The more I keep
lot
thinking
of
about
games
it,
there. Now, to be
GameCube's
fair,
like, no.
to be fair, with GameCube, about 90% of what I have mentioned is all first-party Nintendo shit.
Yeah.
So that is a little asterisk there. Because,
Well, and that is a big problem for Nintendo, and has been a problem throughout the years, which we'll get into as we break down some of the other Nintendo games. But something we haven't talked about since SNES is that Nintendo's library consists 90% of Nintendo licensed games. They always had a problem with their library, and you know, we never got into why I thought that the SNES was an overrated system. The reason I think the SNES was an overrated system is its library is not that big. It's not. It's much smaller than like the Genesis and the Nintendo. And like, I think that there are great games on the Super Nintendo system, but for variety, I would pick Genesis over Super Nintendo every day of the week. They just had more games, more choices, and that was when Nintendo started to do this kind of hermiting where they would like rely solely on these properties that people just loved beyond recognition. You know, the Zelda, the Mario, the Metroid. Like that's when they like, oh, these are our things, and that's what we're gonna do. Period. You know what I mean?
And I think a little bit of that came from. I think a little bit of that came from the difference in like the audio processing, to be honest. I think because the Genesis used the blast processor for audio that gives it that unique sound.
Dude, blast processing was a hoax, man. I can't believe you just said that on our show. It's an admitted hoax. They lied about it. I don't know
if it was the blast processing, whatever gave it that unique audio sound.
Oh, Neil,
I don't know if that was the blast.
Oh, Neil, it's
what are you talking about?
The blast processor that they advertised. It's straight up a hoax. They admitted it's a hoax. It was a hoax that they said. Like, they were like, our games move faster because of blast processing. And that's not a real thing.
That's not what I was talking about.
Well, you just said blast processing.
That's what I thought it was. The
Oh my
audio
God.
chiptune for the Genesis console. Now I got to Google it so I know exactly what it is.
Oh my God. You got to. Because blast processing isn't a thing. Ooh. Ooh.
Okay, it was a Yamaha
There you
chip.
go. Okay.
It was a Yamaha chip. That's what it was.
All right.
That's what I was referring to, not the blast processing.
Okay.
Blast processing, yes. No, obviously.
I'm sorry. If I didn't check you, somebody would have.
it's just hardware. Like,
that was a
acceleration.
big
That's
deal
what I
back in the
thought.
day because they released those ads where they were like, why are our games faster than Super Nintendo's? Because of blast processing. And then they were like, blast processing isn't a thing. You just said a thing. And they were like, yeah, we did. We just wanted to sell more units.
Yeah, but I think that kind of leads to a little bit of a difference in that. And then what is it that what was it that Nintendo had? It was the God. To where they could make it look 3D in a 2D space.
Yes. Yeah.
I cannot remember the name of that shit
I cannot remember either because it was a jury rigged thing. They had to trick the system into it, and that's how they did like Star Fox and stuff.
Yes.
And Star Fox was groundbreaking because of it. I can't remember what they called it either. They had a name for it. But in any case, I think that like that's a Nintendo problem going forward until the Switch. I think the Switch was the first system that kind of rectified that. You just had console after console where you'd have less and less licensed products, and they would rely more and more on these like well-developed franchises, which are classic franchises that never really disappoint. Even when they sucked, they weren't like I don't prefer Mario Sunshine, but it was still a quality game out the gate. They always had those, but like their libraries just dwindled more and more and more and more, in my opinion.
So then from there,
should we talk about PlayStation?
I was gonna say.
I think that's the next one. I don't think that there was anything
PlayStation.
else.
Yeah, PlayStation is one of those. The PS1 is where I did not own one of those consoles.
I did.
The games that I played for it were a little bit like they were after the fact. Even like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Symphony of the Night, all that stuff. God, Symphony of the Night, I never played for the first time until 2008.
Which is sad because that game was the game for me.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah,
I've played through it multiple times now at this point.
Definitely. It was in consideration for my GOAT without a doubt. When we were
the
talking
PS1.
about GOAT. No. When we were talking about GOAT game.
Oh, yeah.
PS1, I'm going to say this, and this is going to be a hot take, is the most overrated system in the history of gaming. A most overrated system in there. And anybody who wants to come at me. I don't care. Those games don't hold up unless they were like pixel art or cell shaded. The 3D stuff is all crap. It's mishmash. It's hard to play. The reason we liked it when we were younger is because no one had done anything like that before, and we still had the imaginations to like really jump into that. But if you go back to those games, those systems, that wasn't good. It was not good. I think the Sony PlayStation 1 is the most overrated system in the history of gaming. I think that it put Sony on the mark. It basically made them a huge console in the whole console war thing. It kind of ended the Nintendo Sega thing, because Sega couldn't compete with that with the Dreamcast. They were done. Yeah. Nintendo almost died. They had to go niche real fast. And the only ones that were going to compete with them was the Xbox a little bit later, but it kind of like ended it. It was like Sony or nothing at that point. But that system is still overrated in my opinion. I'm sorry, it is. And does it have, as you would say, certified bangers on it? Fuck yeah. Symphony of the Night, classic. You got OG Tekken. But even OG Tekken, it is a squares and triangles humping each other, on other squares and triangles. Yeah. It was not pretty in any way, shape, or form. And that's one of the reasons we're remastering a lot of those is because they are wow crap back in the day. That's what I'm saying about PlayStation 1. I mean, it's there. It had to be there. It was the leap. It's kind of the missing link from where we were to where we are. But as a system, it was overrated.
And I feel like, that is the missing link between where we were and where we are. I think the next segment where we get into the PS2 and the Xbox is where we kind of like get to see us being on the journey where we're at. technically the GameCube kind of was at the same time as these ones, but like we mentioned, the 64 was kind of late to the game when everybody was already going disc, so Nintendo was already again playing catch up. So this I think was the start of where Nintendo was just like taking their ball and going home.
Yes.
That's when this is when Microsoft and Sony were really starting to go head to head. Now the PS2 and the PS2 and the Xbox. I had a classic Xbox. I really only had 2 games for it. And honestly, at that point in
there
time,
were only 2 games for the OG Xbox. It was Halo.
Basically.
And Morrowind.
Halo,
and that was fucking it, man.
I had Halo 2 and a Tron game.
Oh, okay.
And I could not actually even play Halo 2 while my dad was home because he was very much like no violent video games in the house and everything like that. So I had my copy of Halo 2 and I hid it in my bedroom in multiple different places because I think he was on to me at one point that I had it. It was one of those deals that I was playing the game. He came home and I like abort real fast and just like ejected the disc, put it in the case, and like moved it in different hiding spots. I actually had it hid in the ceiling in my room at one point.
Oh, that's funny.
Because the under the mattress was not safe for the copy of Halo 2.
Okay.
So my Xbox knowledge is very limited for the most part. I really just put in CDs and ripped the music onto the console and used it as a media player more than anything else.
So, Xbox was late for me. I was not a Microsoft guy. I was a Sony guy originally. Like, I had been PlayStation 1, and then I got to the PlayStation 2. The Xbox didn't come until much later when a lot of my friends had gotten into the Halo LAN parties. I wanted to get in on that. That was a lot of fun. And then Halo 2 obviously had the online, really the first of the online stuff. I think that Xbox is mentionable in the space because of that. Because I think if you look at first person shooters and even in a lot of ways online competitive gaming kind of comes from Halo 2. Like if you really want to like go back, that was when it started. Like, oh, we've got an online service, and then you get ranked worldwide. And then that was where it was. That was the start of it, And I think
at that point in time too, that was just such like a crazy what? I can play against random people across the country and even in some cases the literal world.
Yep. It was a big deal, and I think that OG Xbox's biggest faults obviously are its library. It almost died until Halo came out, and then when Halo came out, it saved it, and then it never really followed it up with a good library either. Like OG Xbox, like of the games that you can remember that were on that thing, that I can remember that were a hit in any way, shape, or form, it would be Halo 2. You'd have Morrowind, because that was the first console-based Elder Scrolls, which was a big deal. And then you had Jade Empire, which was good. At least other people thought it was good. I hated it. And then you had... it's going to drive me nuts. Oh, Crimson Skies. And then that was it. Like, that was where all of the, the widely positively regarded OG Xbox scene. Oh, I mean, you could also do the Star Wars one, Old Republic. That a lot of people love that one. But you see where I'm going with this. Like their library, like I just complained about Nintendo's library. The OG Xbox had no library, which is why I laugh so much with the people now who are just like, Xbox has no games, and I'm just like, Xbox has never had games, man. They've never had games. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So, I think we skipped over it for a reason. Did we skip over it for a reason?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We were getting there. Now, this one here,
Because I want to go back.
Most.
Are we doing PlayStation 2? Can we do PlayStation 2?
That's what we're. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
I don't have to go further. This is my GOAT system, 100%.
Okay.
My GOAT system from
This
start to
was
finish.
almost.
You didn't pick this?
Almost.
What fucking shitty system beats this that you're about to say? Nothing comes after it that's better.
Man.
Nothing comes after it that's
All
better.
right.
Nothing.
So
I would have let go like an SNES or a Nintendo 64, but you're gonna pick one of the newer systems after PlayStation 2 to beat this? Maybe Xbox One. No, because it has shitty launch. No, there's no fucking way. You're gonna pick some stupid shit like PlayStation 3, aren't you?
No. Fine. Let's just
get it
fight now. Let's fight now. Let's fight.
Well, can I? Okay, all right.
To be fair,
What's your go?
the PS2 is amazing. It was right there.
All right, let's talk about the
there
PlayStation
neck
2
and
for a
neck.
while before we fight. PlayStation 2 is the game. A lot of those games still hold up. I still have a PlayStation 2 right here. I still have a library of PlayStation 2 games that every once in a while I plug in and play. I've got a memory card with my save files because I'll never give them up. PlayStation 2 had the DVD player in it when and DVDs used to be a thing, guys. I know they're not now, but they used to be a huge thing. I could play DVDs on that. I could play my games on that. It was a one-stop entertainment system. I had the original box PlayStation. PlayStation 2. I played that for 5 years until it fucking died, and then I went out and bought a Slim because no fucking way am I not going to have a PlayStation 2 in my house. And then I played that for another fucking 5 years. I would still play that over next gen consoles that I got. The library of the PlayStation 2 is huge. They have so many games, and sure, there's tons of crap games, but there's so many good games, so many licensed games, so many first parties games. The PlayStation 2 is where you saw so many franchises hit their stride. Grand Theft Auto 3, ladies and gentlemen. Grand Theft Auto 3, the first real open world game. I'm saying this into the camera. Neil can't see it because I'm so close right now. The first real open world game. Every fucking game is an open world game now. This was the first one. Tekken hit its stride in the PlayStation 2 era. Max Payne 2. Holy shit. Great narrative shooters. PlayStation 2 is the single greatest console in history without a doubt. Without a doubt in my mind, wouldn't take it back.
And on top of that, too, is where we started to see a lot of like retro collections.
Yes.
On top of that,
Yes.
My PS2 collection upstairs, even like the Sonic collections. There were two separate Sonic collections: the Sonic Gems collection and the Sonic Mega Collection. Those two there just combined all of the Sonic games in all of existence, basically, all in one spot. You did have things like some of the RPGs that there were. Final Fantasy X, the first direct sequel to a Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy X-2, the known as Pretty Princess Dress Up Party, as I have referred to it as before.
And for all you idiots that like Final Fantasy VII, that one was huge back then.
Well, 7, the original OG 7 was on the PS1, but
was it?
They did have,
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, they did have Dirge Cerberus, though.
Right.
So I guess they technically did have a Final Fantasy VII game on there. Tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of games. And honestly, it's still regarded as one of the greatest consoles, like not just by like our standards. It had the longest life cycle, I think, too. I think it was a 12-year life cycle, the longest life cycle of any console.
I don't always like to speak in absolutes, but I'm speaking in absolute. It is not one of. It is the greatest console ever made. It has the best wrestling game on it. Yeah, I see you No Mercy fans. You're idiots. That game doesn't hold up. Here Comes the Pain is the best wrestling game ever made. Fight me. I tell you another thing. The fucking game has that system. That system is one of the is the greatest system ever made. Still to this day, the best hockey game. I played NHL 02 till it ran out of characters to draft.
That's right. You've talked about this before.
Like I can't play it anymore because there's no more college drafts in it. I played that league so much. Once a year, I would go back and play another year in that game until it's like, no, we can't do it anymore. Like, that system is the best system in the history of systems, bar none, hands down. So, with all that said, what system are you going to be wrong about?
So, I'm going to say, for me, mine's going to be the 360.
Okay.
So, like I said, the PS2 was
Trying to keep it positive here.
Right there.
What?
Right there.
What beats the PlayStation 2 on the 360?
For me, I looked at like the breadth of games, of course. They are pretty close.
They're good.
Of course.
360's got a lot.
360 has a lot. They're great. But 360 for me is where I personally was like, okay, online gaming is now like a thing, like an actual thing, not like a well, if you have the right connection at the right place at the right time and you know somebody who also has the right connection at the right time, you guys can get online. And that's where I started online gaming. That's where I started my own personal, like, being a fan of things like Street Fighter was a thing. That's where I really started with Halo. That's where, like, I started with, like, big open world games like Skyrim. Like, that is where a lot of things started that really went from, like, it was like an evolution of, you know, when I was younger. So the Super Nintendo Genesis era was like, what are these? I like these. It's fun, you know, whatever. But I didn't know what I was doing. Then from there, in like that GameCube, Nintendo 64 sort of era, it was like, oh, okay, well, you know, these things, they're fun. I do enjoy them, but I don't know really what it is that I like about them. It's just something to do to pass the time. It's when I get to the PS2 and 360, it's where it's like, okay, like, I guess I'm considered a gamer now because I have preferences. I look forward to things, stuff like that.
Okay.
Looking at the PS2 and the 360 directly next to each other, the only thing that edges it out for me between those two is my own personal experiences. Okay. I wouldn't call it necessarily nostalgia, but personal experience.
We're not going to fight as much as you think we're going to fight, because I think the 360 is a solid choice. I'm very happy you picked the 360. When you weren't going to pick the PlayStation 2,
fuck that shit.
I was like, God, he's going to pick, or one of the ones that are out now, which I'd rather like.
No. And I also
they literally made me buy a PC.
I was gonna say, like, before we get into that, I think like this is the point that we can definitively say like that the ranking ends, because we don't know what the legacy of the PS4 and the Xbox One is. Sure, they're like on their way out, but they're not done yet. I feel like they're still very much around because they're still getting releases and stuff.
I don't know. I think Xbox One is pretty much done. Same with PlayStation 3. But I would accept those to be discussed. Those are the answer would be shitty. I do want to say on the 360, on the subject of the 360, my biggest problem with the 360. But first I want to say Xbox did something really good there. It basically took the PlayStation 2 model and did it for a more modern age. Basically, it was like, hey, man, you only need a PlayStation 2 as entertainment. But now we're going to have Xbox, and you're only going to need that. So it played all the DVDs, and it also was the first console to get Netflix streaming, which then that turned into a whole thing, obviously. So it did what PlayStation did first. The 360 also had just a library of kick-ass games. Fable, you had Fable 2, you had
only Fable 2.
That's why I bought the system. That's why I bought the system.
Same actually.
I went out and purchased the arcade to play Fable 2, and I was not disappointed. That game was awesome. It has a special place in my heart. Skyrim.
Still a thing.
The Call of Duties, the Modern Warfares and stuff started there. Here's my problem with 360. Okay, and as much as I love 360, I'm not going to argue with you on that it's a good console. It turned the corner. It has sent us down the hole that we are in now. The 360, if you look at the 360, the way they did online, the way they did kind of some of their games, they started a lot of the games of service trends.
Microtransactions started there.
Destiny 1 was on Xbox 360 too. And look, like I said, I like the idea of games of service when presented correctly. However, a lot of the predatory shit you see now is an evolution of something that started on the 360. That's why I can never consider it the GOAT system, because it's the poison that got the well, and it's the system that everybody looked at and was like, oh,
yeah,
this is how we fuck them. Like, and that's something that bothers me about it. I mean, it was a good system. They undercut PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 was a fucking nightmare, in my opinion, as far as a console goes. I owned one, and I hated it. It was just terrible comparatively to the 360.
I sold you that PS3.
You did, and I fucking hate. Guess what I did with it? I sold it. It was awful. I wanted to try it just because I wanted to try some of the PlayStation 3 games. I played I played a couple of their Sony games, but the system was just so shitty, in my opinion, as far as the UI, how it worked, how you did stuff was just terrible, and it was so big and clunky for no fucking reason. Plus, that comes from Japan where they don't have space. Why is it this big?
And they also ruined their launch. By pricing it like way higher.
Way too high.
Way higher than it had any right to be.
Whereas Xbox had different price points. I could go out and get the arcade edition for $200. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that and get Fable. It's great. The big problem I have, though, still is it poisoned the well for years to come.
Fair,
all of the evil predatory shit that we see in gaming right now, it didn't do it to the links of that, but it all started back there on the 360. The shitty matchmaking problems on Halo 3 when that came out, and them having to fix that in retrograde. All the shit that you see now started on the 360 and just evolved in the worst ways, and that's why I cannot ever give 360 the GOAT system. As solid as it is, it's the poison in the well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point for sure.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't take that into consideration when I considered my GOAT, but at the same time, I still think that even though all that shitty stuff did start really there, I still don't think that that's enough to make me sway towards the PS2.
It's personal opinion at this point.
That's true.
I think PlayStation 2 has a better library, has more bangers, has more quality play to it. I mean, I like the 360. I'm not going to knock the performance of the 360, but I think standing up to each other, in my personal opinion, Xbox 360 falls short in every single category. Maybe just a little bit, but still falls short in every category, except possibly the streaming thing. But again, you got streaming on the Xbox, and now we don't even have a use for DVDs anymore, and streaming services have all splintered into different streaming services, so you have to have 7 of them. Like, where did that come from? You know what I mean? It came from Netflix, which was first on Xbox, and that was the first place they beamed it into your fucking house instead of doing so, like, even the streaming, even the evil shit in streaming right now, which is just as evil as gaming in my opinion.
Yeah.
It comes from Xbox 360. it's the all the evil shit started there, and I don't know. That's why I never give it to it. But on the other levels, I just feel like it fell short on everything except for maybe like graphics and processing power. You know. Mm-hmm. All right, but that's it, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think the best console is? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. We got to get to odds and ends because we've been talking too long, and I still have to edit this tonight.
I just looked at the time, and we're already over an hour.
Well, and I'm gonna start streaming a new TTRPG stream on Mondays, so I have even less time because I'm a fucking lunatic. So I got to get that done and a bunch of other things done to make sure I have time to do that stream tomorrow. So we will be right back with Odds and Ends.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to Odds and Ends, our final segment. This is where we collect smaller news stories that we don't necessarily want to talk about or deserve a talking point. And we just tell you about them, riff about them, let you know. So I have 2. Neil has an insane 8 because he's been off for 2 weeks. Well, 1 week. So, 2 weeks of Odds and Ends, I guess.
Yes.
So I'm just going to get mine out of the way. The number 1 is Joseph Staten, the creative director of Halo Infinite, has left Halo Infinite and Microsoft as a whole and walked away. And good for Joseph Staten because Halo sucks ass and Microsoft is an evil, shitty company. So go get him, Staten. Go find a different company and maybe produce something better than Halo Infinite. I am hoping to hear sometime in the future from him as to did outside factors destroy Halo Infinite? You know what I mean?
I'm sure at some point there's going to be that interview where something like that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not super surprised that he left, especially given the fact that he had already left prior.
Yeah.
But then came back for Infinite, and then, Infinite is Infinite.
A train wreck.
Yeah. And it's sad too, because like Halo Infinite, I remember playing the demo and being like hopeful for it, but like I honestly haven't touched it in over a year.
I mean, they don't do anything right with it. Not anything
Yeah.
right. They just delay shit. It took them forever to put the features in that they promised at release. It's just nightmare after nightmare with that game. And now they're canceling things that they promised, that game's dead. And even the other people are saying it. They're like, I don't think Halo's going to be around for a while, because they're going to have to repurpose it.
It needs a solid shelving for a big sleep for about 8 to 10 years.
Let's let it fucking go. Let's
Yeah,
let it
and
go.
then bring it back.
Let 343 do something on their own. And then let's really test their mettle, because I'm going to say this right now. I know 343 was made to make Halo games. They have not made a good Halo game. So let's let them just do their own thing for a while and see if maybe that rejuvenates them. And then when the time is right, give Halo to a different developer. And I mean, you've got enough. And I'm sure in the next coming years you'll have all of them. So just give it to somebody else to do,
Yeah.
All right, my next one is AEW Fight Forever, which apparently is going to take forever to come out. This game has just had nothing but controversy in it. It is the wrestling game for AEW, WWE's biggest competitor at this time. And it has been promised for a long time, but I have reported on this before, there's been behind the scenes controversy where the wrestler that was put in charge of liaisoning with the developer company doesn't like what they're doing, and the developer doesn't like what the wrestler's doing, and then there was cut rosters, and then there was all sorts of things, and then they showed a demo with this weird party game where you collect coins while you're dancing, and then nobody wants that from a wrestling game. And now Tony Khan, which is the guy who runs AEW, the actual wrestling company, said in an interview that Fight Forever is done. It's completely done. They're just going through the rigmarole of setting up the promotion and getting the ESRB rating and all that. And then right after that, the guy who runs THQ and is working on the game is like, it's not done. We're not done with it at all. We don't know why people are saying that. So more miscommunication on that front continues. While I will say this, which really bothers me about this, and is some evil practices. You guys know how much I hate pre-orders. This has been up for pre-order for about 8 months. And at GameStop, you can go into GameStop and pre-order this game. It does not have a release date. It doesn't have a release window. It has nothing other than some trailers online that you can see. And what really bothers me, really makes me feel like it's some evil shit, is if you watch AEW, which I do, they have little ads at the bottom of the screen. Fight Forever pre-order at GameStop that pop up, which is like, this is predatory, man. You're asking people for money before you even have a date to tell them that it's coming out. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm not happy with this, and I'm gonna say this right now. I don't think you guys should buy it. I'm not gonna say boycott it, but I don't think anybody should buy it because I think it's gonna be a train wreck.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. And you know, it's very, very reminiscent that you were talking about of Cyberpunk is the whole, oh, it's done. Well, I don't know why anybody said that it's done. It's not actually done. It's not been done. I don't know who's saying that it's done. It's not even close to being done. It sounds like it's going to be one of those squeeze the turd out, get what you can for it to cut your losses and call it a day situations.
Well, and it bothers me so much. I hear all the time online that, like, people like, Kenny Omega, just listen to Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega's a cool guy. He's a cool wrestler. He doesn't know how to make a fucking video game, guys. He just doesn't. He's a wrestler. He plays a lot of video games. I'm sure he knows what he wants out of his video games, but much like us, we don't know what goes into making a video game, and we don't know how to do it. And I think that when you put a guy in there who thinks he knows what he's doing, it creates even more problems between him and the company and everything else. And I think that like you have just an absolute miscommunication on all fronts. All fronts. I also don't think you should ever put a wrestler in charge of, or not even a wrestler, anybody for that matter who isn't in gaming in charge of making sure the game comes out. You know what I mean? Like, why? Contract a game company to make a game for you and let them make that game. Don't fucking try and interject one of your wrestlers into it. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I like Kenny Omega. I think he's a really cool dude. I don't think he knows what goes into making video games. It's just at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so on to your 8, sir.
Yeah, so all the things in all the land. The first one I'm actually going to combine two. So it's been announced that there is a new live-action Street Fighter movie in production. Shocker, a new Street Fighter game is coming out, and they're trying to get a movie to go along with it. They did that last time with, well, Street Fighter 4 at least. They did that. They didn't do it with 5. So not super shocking there. We'll see how that turns out. The video game stuff has been on a roll lately with the movies and whatnot, especially given the fact that Mario is now the highest grossing video game movie adaptation ever.
Yeah, I hear it's pretty good.
Barreling towards $1 billion.
Yeah, I hear it's pretty good. My wife and kid got to see it.
Yeah?
I didn't go, but they went to see it on a mommy-daughter day, and they said they liked it a lot.
I will be contributing to that on Friday. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I will be able to see that on Friday. That's one of the things that we're going to do for our anniversary.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
And then from there, another game movie related thing is the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is apparently set for release on October 27th. And I guess Blumhouse is the one that's doing it, which is very interesting to me.
Okay.
I don't do spooky shit.
No, neither do I.
But the Blumhouse stuff, I've watched Blumhouse stuff. They're the ones that do the Purge movies. We've watched every single Purge now, as well as the Purge TV show. Some of the actual like horror movies that they've made too, we've watched. So I will be very intrigued to see how that turns out. That's been in production since, 2016, I think. So it's finally on its way out, apparently. No trailer or anything, but...
on all the movie stuff, I will say I don't have any interest in scary movies or Five Nights at Freddy's, so I'm going to pass on that one. I think the Street Fighter movie could be really good. There is an anime movie that I actually own on DVD that is fucking amazing, and I've always been waiting for a sequel to that, and that never came around.
I have right up there in that box, that is my Street Fighter 4 collector's edition. It came with like all of the animated movies.
You're talking about the one with
soundtracks.
Chun-Li and Vega fighting, right? 'Cause
Yes,
that's
that
the
one.
fight
That
to
one's
KMFDM. Oh fuck, man, I could watch that all day, every day. It's fire from KMFDM. It's amazing. It's amazing. Anybody out there who hasn't seen it, go right now to YouTube because I'm sure you can find it, and just look
Yes.
up Chun-Li versus Vega anime, and you will find she'll be fighting. She fights in like an oversized shirt. I don't think
Yeah.
she's not fully dressed, but Vega tries to kill her in her apartment. They use KMFDM soundtrack for the American version. It is one of the greatest fight scenes I've ever watched in my life. It's just fucking amazing. I think that, like I would love to see a new Street Fighter that's good.
It's good. Yes, that
I
is.
will say this. I enjoy the OG Street Fighter movie for all the wrong reasons. That shit is
So-
funny top down. I love Van Damme. I love all of the words that he said afterwards where he was like, I don't remember anything in the movie. I was so coked out of my mind. Like, I love watching that pile of shit. Any day of the week, anybody comes in my house and is like, hey, do you want to watch the Street Fighter movie with Raul Julia? Yes. Yes, I do.
I do need to see that one. I have not seen that one.
The Raul Julia one?
Yeah, no, the OG. I have not seen the OG one.
It's so bad, Neil. It's
I've
so
heard. I've
bad.
so bad. It's good. I've
yes,
heard.
yeah. Like it's
yeah.
It's like a parody. It's so bad. It's like a parody of the game. Is what it is.
Yeah.
It's
The,
so bad.
Let's see, like The Legend of Chun-Li. That one was just bad. Overall.
Yeah, I
bad,
never
bad.
watched that one.
That one. It was you cannot.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Happily.
definitely cannot. There's no redeeming qualities.
The Raul Julia one has redeeming qualities. It's amazing.
So, moving on to the next one. Monster Energy is being a bunch of dickbags.
Okay.
Again. So they're trying to push an indie developer to change their name for their upcoming game. Their game is called Dark Deception: Monsters and Mortals. And Monster claims that there may be confusion about their brand being associated with the game.
That's insane.
This is not a new thing. They're apparently notorious
Yeah, they
trademark
are.
trolls.
They are.
As we've talked about before, Phoenix Rising, back when it was called what
Gods
was
and
it
Monsters.
called?
It's
Gods
called
and Monsters. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was called Gods and Monsters, and Monster was like, actually, there might be some confusion. Like they see it as like free advertising or something, but it's not.
Well, and
It's
often
stupid.
you've got an intellectual property that you're trying to release. A lot of times the threat of a lawsuit is going to make you just change your name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happened
Right.
with a lot of them, especially an indie developer. And it's Monster Energy. Like,
What are you going to do? Yeah, you don't want to be in
Right.
junctions because you can't release the game till you win the fight, and the fight could
Right.
last years. Yeah.
which is just, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid, and I hate the monsters doing that.
It's actually one of the problems that it wasn't in the odds and ends, but one of the problems that AEW is having is they're having a huge trademark war right now with their name being Fight Forever, because there was I want to say another wrestling game, which is a much more valid claim, but you just change it at that point. Like, oh, Monster has a problem with it. All right, Dark Deception, something else. You know what I mean? I would see it a lot more if Monster was about to release a new flavor called Dark Deception.
Right. Which sounds like the name of a monster, too.
Yeah.
So the next one, interesting and also dumb. Apparently, there are rumors floating around that Sony is working on a new
Really?
handheld console. Yes.
That makes sense.
These rumors are so credible, in fact, that IGN has actually addressed them on Next Gen Console Watch. the name of it's codenamed Q Lite. Now, what is this mystery Sony PlayStation handheld? Well, it is apparently a handheld console to which you can stream games from your PlayStation 5 to this. And only that. Nothing else. It must be tied to a PlayStation 5 on the same local network.
That is not good and will not sell if it is anything over like $50.
So what is extra dumb about this is they actually have a streaming app right now that you can install on a tablet or your phone to do that same exact fucking thing.
Why would you do that then?
Pair your controller to your phone. I don't know why they would make something specifically for that, unless it's literally only like $50 to $100.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you why? Because Sony is out of touch. They don't know how to. They don't know how to be versatile. They've got a game plan that they run, and every time they try and do something different, it's a fucking train wreck. It's the same with their Game Pass. They're like, well, we gotta do something to fight Game Pass. Their Game Pass is shit compared to Game Pass. Now they're trying to do a handheld because you've got Switch and you've got Valve doing very successful handhelds, and it's gonna be shit because Sony is a rigid play-by-numbers company. They always have been. Here's the console. Here's what it does. Here's the price point. Make new console. You know what I mean? Like, and now they're trying to they're trying to keep up with these new ideas, and they're failing. They're failing hard.
Well, speaking of failing and failing hard, this one is one that I sent you the other day.
Oh yeah.
So that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, it's doing real bad.
Yeah.
Real bad.
Mm-hmm.
So bad, in fact, that it has been now delayed to February 2024. Now, since I sent you that, a little bit extra has come out from that. Now, this part's just a rumor, but apparently the negative reaction to the always online live service elements was so great that apparently the rumor is they're delaying it to rework the game to remove all of that.
Yeah, and that is gonna be what makes this game shit. I think that you can't do that, right? You can't take a game, and it's evident from doing the opposite with Marvel's Avengers. You had very clearly a game that they were intending to be a narrative focused experience that they reworked to then be a games as service situation, and you end up having these knee-jerk experiences on both levels. I think that that's the problem. Okay, you've made a game that people don't think they're going to want to play, but we're not in an era where you can just all right, back to the drawing board on that one. You've got a game there. You can't rework a games as service to not be a games as service. I think also the whole online always live thing. The problem here is the presentation, right? Really, between the two of us, is the problem that it's always online and you have to have always online games as service? I don't think so. I think the problem is, for no apparent reason, you have a loot system. For no apparent reason, they all shoot guns. For no apparent reason, the problem isn't that it's always online and it's a live service. The problem is why? Why? Yeah. Give us a reason why. They haven't. And the only reason they've given us is we want to take money from you later on. And that's the problem here. That's really the problem here. If they had presented a games as service where they're this is the games as service, and we're working out so that we will slowly add villains to the roster that you get to play, and those villains, there's no loot system in it. Maybe there's a progression system for each villain or something you know what I mean? Instead, you made Suicide Squad into Borderlands with an online component. What's the point of that? I think that's the biggest reason people don't like this. People are upset about this. Is there's just no reason for this,
Well, great segue there.
Yay!
Speaking of things that's no reason and taking money from you later. So the Resident Evil 4 remake came out.
Mm-hmm.
Great reviews across the board.
So far.
They faithfully recreated and improved on the original, except for one teeny tiny little itty bitty baby thing. They went by the way of Activision and retroactively, after all of the reviews have come out, put in microtransactions in a single player game.
Fucking ridiculous. What's there to say about that? I mean, next, I guess. I think everybody out there can see what's wrong with that.
Yeah, it's multiple levels, and now we're doing single player games. Let alone the fact that they put the microtransactions in afterwards because they knew the reviews were gonna ding them for it. That's the stupidest fucking shit ever, man. Like, and I think the fact that they did it afterwards makes it worse. Like, if you just did it up front, like, we're gonna hate you for it, but at least you were honest enough.
This is what I have been talking about. If you can think of an evil, shitty thing that a company could do, they're going to do it. Like, as long as they can make money off of it. And this is just another sign of that. I mean, Borderlands, review copies only on PC so that nobody could try the co-op version. You know, like, same with the Cyberpunk. Like, these companies are going to fuck you if they can. And they will do the most evil, shady, shitty shit out there. Again, going back to what we talked about weeks ago, 100% Microsoft would sabotage Call of Duty for PlayStation. I mean, just every day something happens that makes me... I'm sorry, everybody, that I'm holding a toy truck. I didn't realize I was going to start talking with my hands, but I've been fiddling with it.
I've been playing with a magnetic tool this entire time. So.
There you go. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. If they can make money off of it and not get caught, they're going to do it. Period. Period. End of story.
Yeah. Moving along then. Only got 2 more left.
All right, let's do it.
The Last of Us had the port. The Last of Us Part 1 had the port to the PC. Is real bad. Is real bad. Like, glitch central. Faces disappearing. Janky frame rates and everything. Apparently it's so bad that Steam is doing the unthinkable and giving people refunds regardless of playtime.
I am so mad right now. You're telling me
yes,
they're getting fucking Cyberpunk wasn't bad enough.
The Cyberpunk wasn't bad enough. No, this is yeah.
I don't have the energy for this rant. I don't have the energy for this.
Yeah, this is so.
Where's
like now,
my motherfucking money? The fucking thing just sits in my library. Ugh.
But it's good now. It's good now.
Neil,
you can get your money's worth because it's good
I
now.
will turn this thing off. I will get my fucking car. I will drive through the rain. I will kick your fucking door down, and I'll slap you in the mouth. Stop that shit. Stop that shit. Don't be that asshole. All right.
So
moving on.
I got my last one, and this one's a doozy because it made national news. National news.
Well,
you no doubt have heard about this.
I'm sure I have, and now I'm kind of like searching my brain.
So, over here in the U.S., we had some very sensitive secret documents leak.
Oh, yeah.
So, an individual who worked for the government got a hold of these documents, took pictures of them, and shared them online. Where online did he share these said documents? A Minecraft Discord server where they stayed for months until finally somebody found out about it when it started making the rounds in like Russia. So yeah, Discord has said, "Oh, we really need to police our stuff better." I think there's a difference between like hate speech and, people being dicks online and like actual classified literal government documents. I think there's just a little bit of a difference there. The fact that this individual and it's a whole long story about it, but
Yeah, I don't want to do it.
the fact that this guy was like, you know what, Minecraft Discord server. This is where I'm gonna share my secret government
It is a weird
documents that I've
choice.
stolen.
It is a weird choice.
Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, that one. I remember reading it, and like I had to stop for a second and reread it again because like that. This definitely doesn't say that this dude put all this stuff up on a Minecraft server. But yeah, no, he did. He absolutely did.
What a weird. I don't know what to add to that one. I'm gonna be honest. Don't at all know what to add to that one. Weird choice. All right, so that is it for you, right?
Yeah, that is it. My 800,000 odds and end.
All right, we're gonna be right back and wrap this thing up.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that brings us to the end of the show and the shameless self-promotion that comes with it. Neil, anything special you would like to plug?
Well, it's not this Wednesday, correct? Next Wednesday, right?
It is a week from this Wednesday.
It is a week from this Wednesday. Zach, my wife, and myself will all be playing You Suck at Parking again, and you will get to listen/watch them berate me in general. I guess that's the main selling point of
He
this
deserves
stream
it.
anymore.
He's trying to make himself a victim. He deserves it. We will be doing that a week from this Wednesday. It is always fun. I have laugh lines every time I do that show. It's great. I don't know. This might be the last time we do You Suck at Parking for a while because we will be doing a show together. So I don't know that we will be streaming for a while. So if you've enjoyed the last three,
I'm
this might be it.
I'm counting down to that other one because that's like I think that's like a low key gonna be a banger for this year for me.
It's I don't know if we'll get views, but it's gonna be a banger for me. Like just to play it with you guys, like as a show. Like I think that'll be amazing. Okay, so what he is talking about is we are going to do Redfall as a trio, as a Let's Play show. So it'll be a weekly show that comes out like our old Halo Infinite Road. I don't know what I'm going to call the show, but the three of us are going to play it, which I am just so ecstatic about. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Please check that out. For my special plugs, my little special plugs. So we got a couple of things happening in the next week. First of all, and a lot of this is TTRPG stuff. Like I said, guys, we've got some more tabletop role-playing game content coming your way, and a lot of it kicks off this week. This Wednesday will be the start of our stream, Astral Drive. I am game mastering Philbilly330, our official, unofficial, official partner in TTRPGdom, Wizard's Respite, and then Aether Dios is making his way back to the streaming, gaming, channel-y stuff. And I'm going to be game mastering them. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're actually playing one of the new systems coming out this year from Axiom Games LLC, which is super exciting. So please check that out. Wednesday night, 9:30, or on the back end is totally fine too. But another tabletop role-playing game stream is starting on this channel this week, and it is starting, well, it'll have already happened by the time you're listening to this. It happened this last Monday, and that is going to be Getting Over. I actually demoed it a few weeks ago. I wrote a solo wrestling promoter journaling RPG if you can believe it. But it's playable with multiple people, each playing their own wrestling promotion. I have a friend of mine named Josh who's gonna be on the show for the first time, and we are playing from 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon tomorrow on Monday till roughly around 3ish. And we're each gonna do a show, and this game is so much fun to watch, be a part of. If you watch it on the back end, comment. If you're watching it live, chat, because whatever you say, we're gonna try and incorporate it into our stuff too. Like, we're gonna try and incorporate the characters in and all sorts of stuff. So it's very interactive. So please check that out. Other than that, we got the normal stuff coming out. I do have some more reviews coming out here shortly. We've got I got a review for Sifu Arenas, the Arenas DLC, and then a bunch of other like small indie games that were given to me through codes, which I'm kind of excited to review. Yeah, and I want to try and review Minecraft Legends. It just depends on whether I can get enough people to play it with me.
That's coming out.
I think it's out. I think it comes out on the 18th, but I think you can play it with Game Pass right now through the Minecraft launcher. Not 100% positive on that, but I feel like you can. In any case, I'm hoping to do a review on that. So keep to the channel. Of course, we got Prelude to Divorce. We've got the OMGM stuff, which may be having technical difficulties soon, but we still have like 4 episodes before you see any technical difficulties. And then So stay tuned to the channel for all your video games and now tabletop role-playing game stuff. It's very exciting. And other than that, you guys keep watching, keep listening. We'll keep making them. We'll see you guys next week. So you've seen my house, but in case this does make a bonus, my house is a bi-level, which is basically it's a raised ranch for anybody who's listening to this who isn't in the States, where most of the living is in one level, and then you have a basement that's kind of finished, but the basement is half below ground level, and then the garage is below ground level, usually dug out. So you kind of like, your driveway is like an incline down, and then you park kind of below the ground, which creates obvious problems with water issues because you're below the water level. You have to have some good waterproofing and that sort of thing. We have a nice new sump pump. However, and I've never seen this before because I've had a sump pump, and for anybody who isn't naturalized to a sump pump is a thing that you put in the basement. All the water kind of like gets moved towards the sump pump. And with little different piping under your foundation, and then that pumps the water out from under your house, so your house doesn't flood. It's absolutely imperative. It's an imperative piece of equipment, especially nowadays when you have all this rain. But like in Ohio, like every fucking house has a sump pump. You need it. It's just required. This sump pump is new. But I've never seen this. The sump pump itself connects to a line that is exterior and open to the outside. So at
outside of your garage.
Yeah, like the exterior of the house. Now, I don't know if you've dealt with a sump pump much in your life, like dealt with the inner workings of it. But yeah. It doesn't do so great when a bunch of leaves and sticks and shit get pumped into it. Basically, there is this great kind of trough thing at the base of the driveway where... and then there's these grates, these open grates on top of it that are kind of bracketed down. That has a hole and I always thought that was just part of like the drainage that it pumped out. No, I figured it out recently, not that recently, like in the last year or so. That actually pumps into the sump pump to then be pumped out. I kind of get why they did it because of how much water ends up right there. The problem is that all the water, all the leaves, all the buds from the trees, all the sticks, everything goes right down into that trough, which then gets pumped into the sump pump. So we almost blew our sump pump out recently because that's kept flooding and the sump pump kept running and we couldn't figure out why. Finally, I started messing with it and realized that there was so much dirt and shit in the very bottom of the sump pump that it had literally caked itself onto the pump itself. So the pump was constantly running because the float was up, but it wasn't pumping any water out because there was no water getting through. So the dirtiest job I've ever done, I pulled all the sewage out of there with my hand. Then I had to go unbracket the thing and get all the sewage out of that. So what I ended up doing to try and fix this problem, which has only created more problem for myself, is I had these gutter covers, these little gutter grate things. They're like metal kind of mesh that was left over from when I did my gutters. I cut a chunk of that out, put it over the hole at the end, and then fashioned it in with the bracket so it secures itself with the bracket when I put the bracket in with the grate, so that kind of shit can't get into the sump pump anymore. Here's the problem with that. The sump pump actually sucks through that pipe. It doesn't just like the pipe just doesn't run water in. It actually pulls from there. So it pulls all the stuff up against the mesh. The mesh immediately becomes jammed and it floods anyway, unless I'm out there pulling it actively off the mesh, which is what I had to do Saturday because we got so much rain. At one point, it was halfway through my garage, flooding wise. So I had to run out there, basically swim through a foot of water to get this bracket off with an Allen wrench. I don't know how I pulled that off through the mud, and then just like start pulling shit off the grate. So now what I have to do is I think the next try I have to do is I'm going to take the grate itself, and I'm going to put the mesh over the grate itself, the grates themselves over the top, instead of the grate at the bottom. Because at the very least, if all that mesh gets backed up on the top, I'll be able to take like a shovel or and just push it off there so that the water can get in. But there's just not enough flow in that basement one. But I've never seen a sump pump that was connected to the exterior for this reason, obviously, but it's dirty, shitty, nasty job.
So, in regard to your issue there, I've actually seen they have instead of like the slatted grates like you have, it almost looks like a shower drain that's got little tiny pock holes in it.
Yeah.
You can buy that whole thing, but the problem is you can't just bolt those on usually. You have to take out and install in the concrete a whole new mounting bracket.
Yep.
Which is, at that point, literal construction. Like, there's no way around it.
Like I said, what I have is I still have a bunch of this extra steel meshing for the gutters. I think I'm going to try and basically fashion those over the grating so that it slips in with the grating, and then that'll be kind of I mean, no matter what, I'm going to be scooping sewage out once a year out of that sump pump for the rest of my life.
It's actually funny you bring that up because I literally last week, I had known that this was a problem for a while. Whenever we get hella rain, we have a sump pump too, but two things happen. We have 3 grates. We have one in the back that goes out through our garage.
Okay.
And up the steps into the backyard. There's a drain there. And then I have 2 individual round drains on either side near my garage door.
Okay.
When it gets crazy rain, it fills up and it trickles into the sump pump. It doesn't flow like normal. And then same goes if it's super rainy, it'll fill up that whole like little stairwell and then start pouring into the garage. So I wanted to see how bad it was. I have an optical camera. So I took and just jammed that bitch in there. Well, as far as I could get it, I literally just put it down in and it hit a wall on every single side.
Yeah.
It's just crudded up.
Yep.
With, it's not even like leaves and shit. It's sediment from like dirt and shit over the years. And it's just built up a wall. So I went and bought a special pressure tool.
Nice.
It goes on the tip of a pressure washer because I have a pressure washer. It goes on the end of it, and it just attaches to a flexible hose. It shoots a jet of water straight forward, but also 3 jets backwards and rotates.
Nice.
So that way I put it in there and I cut a hole, and then it just in the back end blows everything back out.
That's great.
I just have to do that.
I understand the sediment. Like this is the same with me. Like I'll scoop out just huge handfuls of black sewage, basically, that just come out with it. It's gross.